call to order if everyone is ready. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Carrabelle Community Redevelopment Agency. It's Tuesday, August 15th, 2017. It's 1:30 p.m. We're at Carrabelle City Hall. With Commissioner Cal Allen, please say the invitation, and then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Stand, please.
Heavenly Father, we are grateful that we have this opportunity to come together today to discuss the things that have occurred within the community of our city. Ask that you be with us in our wisdom and judgments, not do that which we most appropriate and beneficial for our wonderful citizens. We ask this in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call would be Mr. Rob Powis, Commissioner Cal Allen, Commissioner Olivia Massey, Mayor Paz, Mr. Bo May, and Commissioner Keith Walton. Next, we have approval of the minutes, the July 18 minutes. Did everyone get a chance to review that? It was circulated to you.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion by Rob Powis to approve the minutes. Is there a second? And a second to approve the minutes by Commissioner Massey. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. And we'll move on to staff reports. Our CRA Director, Ms. Courtney.
At the City Commission meeting on August 4th, August 3rd, the Commission voted to go ahead and charge a $10 launch fee for the boat ramps and to waive for Franklin County residents. They're going to schedule a workshop to go over the details on how we collect the money and who's going to collect the money and who, just those sort of details. But they did go ahead and vote that they wanted to enact a launch fee.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Courtney. Did you have anything else? No. Do y'all have questions for Courtney? Any questions? All right, then we'll move on to staff report by the city attorney. Please, sir.
All right. The item, I was asked to report on just the one item that the Sanaullah property, there was set to be a tax deed sale on August 7th. That sale was canceled. In talking with the county clerk, what happened, the reason for the cancellation was that the taxes were paid. So parties stepped up and paid the taxes. In digging further into it, I was forwarded a number of deeds and some corporate documents by David Butler. And what appears to have happened is that on August 2nd, the property was deeded from Sanaullah, both parcels, from the Sanaullahs to Clean Up Carrabelle, LLC, a company that was just recently established, a Florida LLC, and then 2 days later transferred to another company called Absolutely Sure LLC, a Georgia limited liability company set up back in 2014. And it would appear that they are the current owners of the property, and that the taxes now have been paid. There will not be a tax deed sale reset, according to the clerk. And what remains unclear is whether or not they cleaned up the bankruptcy trustee issues as far as getting a trustee's deed, or Regions Bank, or whoever the current lender is based on assignments, as to whether or not they've cleaned up title on the property so that they actually have good title to the property without clouds. But I believe they are the current owner, this Absolutely Sure LLC, and I will be bringing this up at the City Commission meeting also, but since that property's been condemned and we really haven't had a liable party in order to kind of get it cleaned up, I'll be requesting that the commission direct me to send them a letter, certainly congratulating them on being the new owner of a nice piece of waterfront property, but also inquiring as to what their plan is to get it cleaned up, because it's long overdue.
Does anyone have questions for Mr. Hartman regarding that topic? So I do. Will you need to know whether the title is without clout first, or will that matter?
It does not matter.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Mr. Hartman?
LLC is just no way to confirm who an LLC is.
Correct, and I've got some of the organization documents and that sort of thing, and it's all very cryptic. And no, I mean, bottom line is, obviously, I've certainly on the private side set these up for a lot of people, and some people say, hey, I want everybody involved listed right up front, and then other folks say, no need for that. All we need, they've certainly complied with the statutory minimum in order to get them set up, and that's all they have to do. So, although I will inquire, I did not before this meeting, but I'm not saying this will lead to anything, but the deeds appear to have been prepared by Steve Watkins. So I can certainly talk to him about it.
Both on the Russian.
And he does not, he's under no obligation to talk about it. But
All right. Does anyone have anything else? Okay, then I would like to ask Mr. Hartman about how meetings are conducted. And I'll first request that you be sure to speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear. Over the past week, I've had 3 comments, and one was very in-depth yesterday regarding their concern that the city meetings are not being conducted under Robert's Rules of Order, and that we are allowing discussion before motions are made. So I have not been informed that the city meetings are to be conducted under Robert's Rules of Order. I did not know that the city had adopted Robert's Rules of Order formally. That was never told to me. I've sat under 2 mayors on this board, and as best I can tell, I mean, I'm not proficient in Robert's Rules of Order by no means. It takes years to learn, you know, a book like this, a thick book like this, and be able to operate with that. So the 2 mayors that I sat under didn't operate strictly by these guidelines. So I want to know, has the city, any commission in the past adopted Robert's Rules of Order?
all right, two pieces to that is, and the mayor had asked me about this last night, and I did try to do a bit of research before the meeting today. So this is just a preliminary opinion. If things change, I'll change my opinion, as lawyers do. But right now, this is how my understanding, and I've been with the city off and on from 05, late 04 to late 05, and then again 08 to current. The way the city has operated is that we're a city commission, Florida municipality. We operate under essentially a parliamentary procedure type of process. This is all the motions, seconds, asking for the floor, all the niceties and procedures that go with that. Robert's Rules of Order is just one, and it's the most accepted, but one way of conducting yourself or whatever according to parliamentary procedure. Think of it like religion. You have all different religions, all different, say, Christian religions. So you have, not the best example, but Lutherans, Protestants, Presbyterians. But Robert's Rules of Order would be the dominant of that. So I mean, when people say Robert's Rules of Order, they don't even talk about another David's Rules of Order or anything like that that someone would use in place of Robert's Rules of Order. However, what cities in Florida are governed by is not Robert's Rules of Order. It's primarily Article 8, Section 2B of the Constitution and Chapter 166 of Florida statutes, which primarily, and sometimes very specifically, but when it talks about conduct of meetings, it basically puts cities under home rule powers in charge of their own meetings. So we adopt and apply our own rules for procedures at meetings. And we can choose to formally adopt Robert's Rules of Order. And I had asked Keisha last night by email, but really we talked about it just briefly this morning, in that during her tenure, my time at the city, I do not remember a resolution being adopted by the city, again, formally adopting Robert's Rules of Order. That in my time, when this issue's come up before, that we use them as a guide when we get ourselves in a spot where there's confusion on procedure, when it's not obvious and straightforward. But that we have not formally adopted it, therefore we're not formally bound by those procedures. Instead, we fall back on, has there been due process? Has there been adequate discussion? Was everybody heard when they were voting? It's those sort of things that are the most important, kind of the touchstone that the Constitution and statutes deal with, not and it can be more important than window dressing, but the Robert's Rules of Order, when in doubt, we defer to them, but when we're not in doubt, we proceed forward, and unless we screw up from a due process standpoint, a notice standpoint, we're fine. I mean, we're in charge. We govern our own rules, and I guess in a lot of situations, the mayor is also been delegated the authority to manage the meetings, to end discussion and things like this. But in this situation, we're looking at old resolutions. We have them going back to the 30s, Keisha tells me, in a number of different dusty old books. So we're going to flip through those and make sure that what I'm telling you, that we have not formally adopted Robert's Rules of Order. But again, talking to everybody that's been with the city for any length of time, everybody says, hey, I don't remember them ever being formally adopted. But we do have the book here, and Keisha usually has one next to her, that when we get ourselves in a bind or paint ourselves in a corner procedurally, we default to Robert's Rules of Order, but it's not binding on us.
Well, it looks like the first one was. I was just seeing the front of this book, but it looks like.
Oh yeah, no, Robert's Rules of Order have been around a long, long time, yeah.
1943, and then 1876.
Yeah, I think Robert's Rules of Order has been around longer than...
And then his son, and then his son, and then his third, his great grandson.
All right.
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
There's an excellent publication put out by the Florida League of Cities. It's sort of almost a pink book. And those of us who've taken the How to Be a Good City Commissioner course, sponsored by the League, it has some very good information in it. And there are times in there where, formality is not a major issue. And it all depends on a lot of circumstances and on the way we want to operate.
Yeah, no, agreed, and I think that, and I was looking at that publication last night, because that's one I go to a lot of times. It's the manual, I forget the French, or the leadership manual or whatever that League of Cities puts out. And again, I only spent a couple hours looking into it, but it was a lot more. I could have sworn it was in our charter that Robert's Rules was mentioned. It's not. I mean, I cannot find any mention of it in the old, called the book, or on Unicode. And then looking more broadly, we do have a section, 10.02.02.05, that talks about the city essentially adopting rules for meetings, on how our procedure for meetings will go. And but again, it may be buried back in 30s or 40s that we adopted something like that. And that's my only, yeah, I mean, we have the power to adopt Robert's Rules of Order if that's what we wanted to do.
As a commission, not the CRA.
As a commission, or I would think, or the CRA
Yeah,
board.
I suppose so, yeah. But it seems to me like right now, as long as I've been on the board 4 years under 2 mayors and then myself, and with the guidance, under your guidance, I would hope that you would have corrected me had I been managing the meetings wrong. But it seems like we're operating under a type of a modified style, more relaxed version of Robert's Rules for small boards, boards of the 12 and under. That's what it seems like.
Yes, we are operating under a more relaxed.
Yeah, but as it's described in these, and actually I sent you these references last night. So for boards of 12 and under, as it's described in there, but sometimes we modify, that's modified as well. And I think I understand Franklin County Board of County Commissioners has not adopted Robert's Rules of Order. I have said on the Appalachian Regional Planning Council, they have not adopted that. The TDC does not use Robert's Rules of Order. They conduct their meetings similar to how these meetings are conducted. So I just, wanted to make sure that I'm within the guidelines and operating under, managing the meetings legally.
Well, and as the commission's lawyer, the city's attorney, I would recommend we continue to proceed as we are, in that I looked, in researching this, there is some case law that talks about jurisdictions that have adopted Robert's Rules of Order as that is how we will operate. Then when you deviate from that, it actually can cast decisions made into question. That if you formally adopt them, then you better follow them to a T, or some smarty-arty in the audience may say, hey, I disagree with that decision that was made, and a month later challenge it in court and actually win because you didn't, follow literally some really picky procedural item that's required in Robert's Rules of Order that really is not, to me, when I read that stuff, a lot of it doesn't, for instance, as the mayor had mentioned, discussing things before there's a second on them or something.
Or a motion in the first place. The person that was talking to me yesterday is very upset because we discuss items before a motion is made.
Yeah,
and I was quoted in here, if you go by this book, formal, you cannot have a discussion before a motion is made.
And that to me would be for us and me. I mean, I've been here now 9 years or so at this round. It would be very difficult to muzzle everybody on every item where we'll vote on something or later. But again, if the commission decided, hey, we want to do that, we want to impose, if things are just chaos, we want to impose more order on it, hey, we can do that. But in doing so, then we all need to get educated a little more on Robert's Rules of Order, because we could very just accidentally really shoot ourselves in the foot.
And yes, and I had someone that I was speaking with yesterday that's very upset that thinks that we should be operating according to this by the rule, by the strict rule. But this book is good for large boards, big boards like board of directors of big major companies like the Ford Company or your Senate, state Senate, U.S. Congress. Where there's huge boards and they're allowed to speak out in the sunshine. They can actually have meetings and discuss things and have everything already decided, the questions already asked, and talk to the person that's presenting the question in the first place. They can have all of that done before they come to the meeting. And Robert's Rules of Order then saves time during big meetings when you have big groups on the board. When you have a small group and you're restricted by the Sunshine Law, we can't meet beforehand and ask each other and have discussion and debate or talk to the person presenting the question. For instance, they're asking for a special exception. So it really hinders, Robert's Rules of Order, hinders those boards that have to operate under the Sunshine Law. Now, that's just my opinion. So I'm going to ask Mr. Hartman to please pay close attention today during the CRA meeting. I want you to make sure I'm conducting this meeting correctly. I'm going to ask you to do that for the next several meetings. And you feel free to call me out at any time. I'm under training. Evidently, I don't know how to handle a meeting. Mr. Cowell, did you have anything to say, Commissioner?
No, I was just thinking about the time the other day when we had a 1-1 vote and you voted to go with one side. So, you know, and there wasn't a second, and you even announced it died for lack of second on the tape at least. But then from there we went on to discuss it. But I did find further on in the research that there is a case where you can actually, motion can become law even without a second. If you start a discussion and you get into the discussion, and in the discussion everybody agrees to it, that is the same as having a motion, a second, and a vote on it.
I think that's what
there are all kinds of, you know, wiggles in there.
Yeah, they call that something like agree in principle.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good term.
And we do that a lot. Whenever the attorney may bring something up, or the clerk or the administrator, they'll bring something up and we agree in principle. We don't have a vote on it.
General consent?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any questions on that? Thank you, Mr. Hartman, and you just keep an eyeball on me and make sure I'm running the meetings right. Okay, so we'll move on then to public comment. Is there any public comment? All right, and then next on the item is new business, and we have item number 1, a report from Ms. Tamara Allen regarding historical state signs and markers. She's brought us a nice presentation.
Good afternoon. I tried not to bring you too much, but it was hard not to bring you more and more stuff. But anyway, I wanted to share with you, not everyone on the board has seen this, but this is a copy of the historic survey and plan that the City of Carrabelle got a grant in 2008 and 9 to conduct as a formal historical survey, which was the beginning of what we did that as part of the Waterfront Partnership way back a long time ago. And we hired a firm to do this according to the structure that the state sets apart for that. And so in the process, they wrote this book, and we have this book at the museum. For some reason I thought more of you had copies, or I would have brought some more over. So if you'll let me know, we will even waive the normal $20 a piece fee. We pay for it, then we sell them there at the museum for $20. We don't make any money on them, we just pass on the cost. But there's a lot of good information about different things in this book. So one of them has to do with places in Carrabelle that are eligible for recognition as historical locations. So I printed out, the thing I really want to talk about today is this one that with the handwriting at the top that says Small Matching Grant, Division of Historical Resources. And this is the cover page, just so you know where this all came from. And then in Appendix C, there is this list, which is in black and red, that's in your handout. And this is, as of 2009, now there would be more places in town that would have become qualified in the past 10 years because it's one of the criteria is that things be at least 50 years old. So as time progresses, there'll be more and more things that are eligible for being old. But just if we just look at this list, they surveyed in the process of doing this report, they surveyed everything on this database sheet here. Every house, every location, every place where there had been an Indian village, just everything that they could find, based on previous things that were filed with the state and also based on local knowledge. So from this list of all these, and it was interesting because when we sat around with a group of little old ladies back at the very beginning of doing this, and we said, well, so how many historic homes do you think there are in Carrabelle? And they said, oh, probably a dozen. Well, of course, it turned out there were like 250, because they're not just the big houses with the columns and the really pretty houses. The little Florida vernacular houses that people made just out of the size of what the wood was, and everybody helped each other make their houses back then, are also perfectly good historical homes. But in order to be distinguished between being a historical home or a historical building and being eligible for the National Registry or some other kind of state recognition as a national landmark, there are other criteria which I could have brought, you know, like the whole book, but basically it's that the place was important for some government, cultural, or event purposes. Like if we had the house where Mr. Coombs signed the county, you know, into existence, that would have been a house that would naturally just be eligible for National Register. So all of these places that are in the red ones on this document are basically eligible for state level and probably national level recognition as historical venues. And it also talks about historical districts. And I didn't bring all the backup for all that, but I have all that. But I think we were talking about signs, and so it would be easy to apply for state landmark status or historical landmark status, or there's about 4 different categories that all of these places, including Mr. Bo's place, the Weather Tower, the Rex Theater, you know, there's just a lot of places in town here, about a dozen, that are excellent examples that we could go forward over time, perhaps in a staged way, and look for opportunities to get more recognition, historical recognition for those places. And for everything in this list, I have a copy of what was filed. Part of what they did when they created the book was to file paperwork with the master site file. That's in the archives. That is the registration as an historical location across the state of Florida. So all of the places that are on this list have been registered there. And so that would be a real plus, because should we decide to go forward with any other historical recognition, then we have a lot of the materials already been created for us. We don't have to go out and create it from scratch. So I've been looking at I will wait to pass out these pictures. Yeah, that's what I said. There's 2 of one and 1 of the other. There are, I'm sure you have all seen one. There's one out at the beach, a Camp Gordon Johnson training ground. There's the only ones in Carrabelle. There are 2, and they're both about
These are the only two in Carrabelle, is that?
No, those are not in Carrabelle. Those are just examples.
Oh, yeah, this one's John Dory and
Yeah,
Black.
they're two of the same. They just, those are just, actually, they're two examples. There's 3 pictures, but it includes 2 examples of what the state historical marker looks like. So whether it's a landmark or whether it's a historical location, it's, that's basically what they look like. And there is a program, I mean, let me just use Bo as an example. If Bo decided that he wanted one of those for his building, and then he could fill out a form, send it in to the state, send in, depending on which level you want, $2,000 or $2,500, and they would have your request reviewed by a state committee, and they would approve the language that you, or tinker with the language that you propose. And if they approve it, then it would be manufactured, and it would be sent back with instructions on how to install it. And that's basically the, the straightforward way if we all had all the money in the world. But there are 2 different programs. One is a program with the in the grant periods, like we go in for historic preservation grant, small matching, special category, whatever. There's a category of markers that you can apply for, and then the state will pay half of the cost. And then, judging from reading the materials that are I must have looked at 50 different markers from the counties around us. A lot of them are actually purchased by individuals. They've got the name of, funded by these 6 people, or it'll be funded by the Carrabelle Historical Society, the Carrabelle CRA, and such and so. There'll be just different combinations of how they're done. So it appears to me that some counties have historical societies that are actually contributing to part of the match for going through that grant program. But those metal signs are the ones that are the official sign. It really is a pretty straightforward process. They work with you. They're very anxious. In fact, they had called me. The people at the state agency that handles these had called me a couple years ago and said, why are there so many historic markers in Appalachia and there's only the 2 in the east end of the county? And which is a good question, because there are people, and I actually have friends that will go to a state that they've never been to, and they will look up the historical markers on their route, and they'll stop at every one along a certain path. So there is a level of tourism that happens because of those signs.
There's one at a house at the end of 3 Rivers.
Okay, I didn't know that.
DJ Hall,
But
and then it's got one in there. They used to
it's not a real historical marker, though.
Oh,
It's just, what does it say?
There was no historical significance.
Nothing of historic, it says, nothing of historical significance ever happened here.
oh.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I like
But when you ride by, it looks like a historical
Yeah.
sign.
Well, I was gonna say, I never have seen
If
it,
you go
but
by real
That's
quick,
DJ, that's classic DJ right
yeah.
there.
And you go by quick, you think, oh, what?
Yeah,
And,
I see it in the yard.
there are some other communities. One of them is St. Andrews that I've actually seen. They made a historic walking tour of St. Andrews, and they used just a little simple shield-shaped plaque that you get at, probably you can get it at Walmart, get them at Michael's and Hobby Lobby. And on it, they have a number. It'll say St. Andrews Historical Society, and it has 3 or 4, whatever. And then there's a brochure that goes with that, which will tell you all about the whatever it is. So there was actually an attempt made earlier on. Some group at FSU had a website that had listed historical properties, pretty much the same list, in Carrabelle, and had information about each place, but it's no longer online, and the people that created it are no longer with FSU. So those are kind of the two extremes, the formal state or federal marker, and then the other would be the just a simple plaque with a number on it. And of course, Carrabelle, the City of Carrabelle or the CRA could decide to do any cross between that, like a little bit larger sign that has the name of the building and the dates of the building or something like that, just to as another option. But those are the, you asked me that was it possible to find out how many houses, how many places in town are historic, would be eligible for something like this recognition. And so that's a list of it. And you'll notice in the same handout, on the last page, is the little map that includes the CRA. Did you guys not get one of these? Oh. I was going to say, I couldn't tell if you were looking at me like I hadn't given you one.
We read.
So in the little blue dots on this map now, the CRA is in red, of course. It's clear that there are a lot of historical properties, especially around the center of downtown and down Marine Street and around there. And the book recommends that Carrabelle consider two possible historic districts, one being out at Three Rivers where the gas pipeline was back during World War II. That's one of the things they recommended. The other one was this proposed town center and waterfront historic district. I have spent a number of hours over the years talking to the people at state about this idea, and they were saying that they find it goes better if you figure out how to divide it into, one would be the historic downtown area, perhaps waterfront and historic downtown, and the other would be the historical neighborhoods, because the neighborhoods sometimes have different consideration than, instead of putting it all together. And so that's kind of the essence of my research in terms of what do we have. We obviously have a great deal of historic stuff. Some of them, things that have been, the oldest house in town is the Yent House, which is on Meridian. It's all boarded up. The porches are off of it and the windows are boarded up. It's behind a lot of bushes, but it looks, when it was put together, it looked exactly like the long white house that's there on Tallahassee Street, just before you get to the Methodist Church. And that one was restored in a pristine historical manner. So it is an excellent example of what the bigger houses in town look like. And then Ms. Murray has restored the Moore House, the Bell House, whatever else we call what she's calling the Bell now, has faithfully restored it to its historical look. She didn't replace the windows, and that's often what happens, is they come and totally replace windows or something that then makes it not eligible. But anyway, that's your list. That doesn't mean that some more of these houses that are listed in this document of the spreadsheet could be historical, and we could write it up, and it could go to, it could go up and be just as historical as some of the others. But the work's already been done essentially on these ones. So I probably have given you more information than you really wanted, but I thought it would give you some sense of, we do have a lot of very significant homes here, and things like the Lindsay Witherspoon home. Judge Witherspoon lived there, and he conducted many, many, many marriages of local people there. Especially in the 40s and 50s, he married hundreds of couples in his living room. And so that house is not only historic from the point of view of it, he built it there, but then he was the county judge, and he did those kind of things. So that adds to, and the fact that the Justice Building was used as City Hall adds that notion of it being important to government or whatever else. So that is the kind of sign that, the one we're working on right now is to get one for the museum property. And then, but the others can be done, we can do them parallel. It's just, we thought we'd start with one that we had all the information for and go from there. But I know Ms. Martha was the one asking the questions about where could she put the sign and what would the sign look like and so forth. So I was hoping she would be here today, that we could share this information with her as well. So do you have any questions or?
Mr. Hartman, can they ask questions?
Absolutely. This is
Okay.
just discussion.
All right. You all are welcome to ask questions to Ms. Tamara about historical state signs and markers. Any questions? Okay.
It's
All right.
pretty well documented that historical recognition, is an economic driver in the state of Florida.
So on the actual historical state signs and markers, is there grant money that would fund a historical marker?
There is grant money that will fund at least half of it, and then usually there's some kind of fundraising done for the other.
And do you have an idea of what one costs?
Right. I actually have the documents on how you actually apply for it, and the current markers are $1,900 for a single-sided marker, which has the same text on the front and back, and a two-sided marker, which has different text on the front and back, is $2,220. And
Does that include delivery?
yes.
They're extremely heavy, but what about installation?
No, that's separate. They consider that separate, but they do have very specific, the applicant is responsible for installing the marker, but they're glad to help, and the company that makes them for this state is glad to assist. And I'll be glad to research more about this for you all if I understood, if I know what you're trying to find out exactly, then I can go inquire more, and I'll continue. I thought that I knew of some waterfront partnerships that had gotten with the historical associations, and it actually created an attractive kind of a sign that maybe had a little more local appeal, but this one certainly got the recognition throughout the state. So.
And then just say you wanted to put one in front of the Witherspoon house, I would think you'd have to get permission from the
Right,
private.
Absolutely. You'd have to get that in writing.
I would ask Ms. Keisha, then do these type signs, or do you know that they have to apply to being off the right of way and onto the private property? Is that?
Thinking about where I've seen them,
I know.
I mean, there's one of Frank about.
Do they belong to the state once you purchase them?
No, I think they belong to the people that purchased them.
Camp Gordon Johnston purchased theirs out that way, and it's on their
On
private
their proper
property.
property. Well, I know it did say you had to have a letter signed by the property owner stating that it was, they wanted to have a historical marker on their property. And in the case of the Witherspoon house, I think that Bonnie Brown would probably be interested in having that done, especially if it added some additional interest to that part of town. You know, our whole idea about getting people to get out of the car and walk around down there between the Veterans Park and so forth. So, but I'll be glad to go ahead. I'm proceeding with the application for the Justice Building, so I should know more about it as we go along and before they're due on the 12th of September. So probably, certainly by your next meeting, I might have some more ideas about, once we do one, we'll have a lot more answers than we currently have. But we're always looking for ways for other people to pay for stuff besides the city. So.
All right. As am I.
Yes, I know, and that's, now, how many of you, if any of you want one of these books, just let me know and I'll make them available to you. I just don't want to put them in the, I don't want to put them in a box and have them sit there.
I have one, and you gave it to me years ago, and I appreciate it. I've used it several times for reference, and we actually used these portions out of it as references for the Restore Act multi-year implementation plan.
So
Okay.
I do have one. Do anybody want one?
Does anyone have any questions? Do you have one of those, Olivia?
Would you like it?
They're very nice.
It's got a really nice history of the city and how it came about, but it's also got a really nice survey about the archaeological history of the area, and some of that was done incorrectly, and now they went back and corrected it. So, but Keith, if you decide you want one, let me know, and I'll one right off.
Okay. All right, then, thank you, Ms. Tamara. Old business, we have none today, so we'll move right along to INOVIA Group, Consulting Group Projects. Ms. Molly is here. Item 1, report on the progress of the Southeast Ave C Project construction and expected completion date, discussion and possible action, if any changes.
Good afternoon. Quick update on the Southeast Avenue C project. They paved yesterday, and I talked to the contractor this afternoon, and he says he just has to get his landscape contractor down there. He expects that to happen within the next 2 weeks, and also the striping and sign guy will be down here in the next 2 weeks as well. So wrapping that project up pretty quickly. Any questions about Avenue C?
All right, then, they're going to ask questions. We haven't made a motion, but y'all are welcome to ask questions. Okay, and I of course, have questions. I didn't get to be there yesterday. I was out of town. Do you know, did they roll the asphalt, the milled asphalt, First Street? Because they put that down and then it wasn't rolled. So
You don't think it's been rolled?
I don't know if it has been rolled.
I haven't been there yet,
Okay.
honestly. I went to 11th before the meeting instead of C. But I'll look at it after the meeting and talk to the contractor as well.
I was thinking maybe they were waiting to roll it whenever they brought the roller for the asphalt, because the roller wasn't down here. It was two different, Jason, can't remember, the guys who did the little lot there, that they had a roller for that, for the lot, but that was a separate contractor than the guys that were doing the asphalt.
Okay.
And they didn't have a roller, so. Then I just want to make sure that Courtney, we've talked about a couple of things on First Street. I haven't been able to see the paving project yet then. That kind of needed to be cleaned up, the sides of the street, and on the east side, fella had oyster shell all laid out real nice around his mailboxes, and that was kind of, that was pretty much messed up, so I'm afraid that Mr. Dunn.
This is on First Street?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I did talk to Russell about that,
Okay.
and he said that he had talked to Mr. Dunn beforehand and had told him what they had planned on doing, and he was fine with it.
Okay.
But he did say that the street, once they surveyed it out, it wasn't center and
Yeah,
it
it was,
moved
yeah,
over.
we widened it and centered it.
It is wide.
So does he want,
But Mr. Dunn hasn't complained to me.
Okay, good.
So that's what I've discussed with Russell, is as of now, he hasn't come to us and complained, so we'll just wait. Because Russell said he did go over that with him and that he was aware that it was going to be.
okay.
And I think he's out of town right now, but I post pictures online and he sees those pictures, I know.
Okay.
So then I just wanted to mention to I have mentioned it to Courtney already, the area there that's being landscaped and it's also got gravel put on it. That's a real nice job. That's generally going to be that's intended for pedestrians and like festival booths and vendors and stuff where we have festivals. And I'm afraid that vehicles are going to drive up on the sidewalk from Marine Street and pull up in there and use that as parking. So we'll see what happens, and we may have to put some traffic delineators or bollards there up on that property along the sidewalk. But we'll look at that
Okay.
as time goes by. Now that gravel wouldn't be able to tolerate a truck and a boat trailer.
It could.
It could.
Yeah, we designed it kind of as, if y'all want to future use it as like during a festival, put a food truck there,
Okay.
and that's why we made a few of those bumper blocks removable. So you can just remove those bumper blocks, have the food truck drive in there, put them back so nobody else gets in there, and kind of
All right.
use
That's
that
good.
as a maintain that area.
And that's something that we could, if we have leftover curb stops, then we could put some of those along there. We just don't want, regular traffic pulling up in there and tearing that up.
Yeah, we kind of made it so that the access point would be from Avenue C, not that people hop in the curb and
But
go
they
in.
do it.
Yeah, okay, I understand.
And I think once you get the landscape in there, that'll detour them something.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come up.
Yeah, definitely.
Do y'all have questions or comments regarding this project?
I am.
Mr. Christopherson?
Did they address the transition between that milled asphalt and the regular asphalt on First Street?
Yes,
There's kind of a bump there.
did you see it? Is it right now there's a bump?
I don't, last time I looked it was, but I didn't.
But they
Okay.
asphalted yesterday.
No,
so-
Yeah.
I'm
so
talking about the milled asphalt. The milled that goes up First Street there.
There's a bump?
Well, when it meets the existing, it's kind of a, they
Oh,
might need
okay.
to put a little more.
Like I said, I haven't been by there yet, but after this meeting, I'll go by there, and anything that is weird, we'll make them fix it.
Okay.
I just want,
Okay. So,
Okay, what,
yeah, I have
yep.
there's a lot of water down on that southeast corner. It's sandy water, and I assume that when you get everything leveled out, it should take care of
Southeast corner of which road?
it. At the Marine Street Triangle.
Yeah, that's a different project.
Okay.
That's Susan's.
we're
Okay.
talking, we're talking about the Southeast Avenue C project,
Oh, no movement.
item 1.
Okay. Oh, I've got it, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Good, no water.
I've got it.
Asphalt, mill.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no worries. Okay, if there's no more questions about Avenue C, I will move on to B.
Northwest Avenue B project. You were here for the community awareness meeting. If you could report on that and then the next steps to be taken.
Yes, last Tuesday, we had a community awareness meeting, had a few citizens come out in the vicinity of the project. That was up at the beginning of the meeting, but it has fallen down in between. It's kind of a major or overall view of our project, so you can see what's proposed. We have a few different alternates in that project, so we discussed that with some of the citizens. We discussed some of the driveways. We found a few driveways that we needed to add, make bigger, especially for the Ace Hardware and the grocery store, kind of talked with them about making sure their access was good and improved with this project. So that was a successful meeting. So our next steps, we are currently working on permitting with the Department of Transportation, since our drainage system will connect to their drainage system. So that once we get that permit secured, we will bid the project and start construction.
Do you think that they'll approve the drainage to hook into their baffle boxes?
Yes, we have two options. We're pursuing one right now, and we think we can get it to work. The other option would be to show them a hardship, and that's another way. If they approve our hardship, kind of saying we only have this much right of way, we can't build a stormwater pond for a block of sidewalk that's new. So, two options. Either way, we'll get it approved by them.
Does anyone have questions for Ms. Molly? Okay, I would ask that you explain a little bit more in detail. I don't have a problem, but now Miss Olivia was here. She may have heard, and Mr. Cow, on the extra construction or added features that's going to have to go on behind the Ace Hardware, so that folks can kind of understand what's going to happen there.
Okay, so just behind the Ace Hardware, there's currently not really a defined driveway apron scenario. So what we're going to do is essentially do a very, very large, long curb cut driveway. So essentially what you see along the roads now on DOT with the concrete wing flared sides, we're doing that, but honestly across their whole back area where they take deliveries. So that improves, so that will ensure that drainage will still get caught from the street and be funneled around, but will still allow truck access and delivery access and stuff for them. So the Ace Hardware and the IGA are kind of the same scenario, giving them the space turnaround areas they need.
All right, and will there be a sidewalk then behind the Ace Hardware and the IGA at all, or portions?
So yes, it will. So how the curb ramps kind of work is the sidewalk is integral to that ramp.
Okay.
So with our sidewalk pattern with the brick, you will have it defined. So it'll kind of be a big concrete expanse, but then you'll see there'll be a area sidewalk that's delineated that you can see the brick pattern continuing through.
Okay, all right. And then all along the west side of the, it's on 6th Street, 7th Street. That's the Ace Hardware, 7th Street.
With the parking?
Well, then the parking, that, I know that's an unmet need.
Yes.
Okay, on the IGA, but then on the Ace Hardware side, right now all of that's asphalt, and it's just like that whole block is a driveway access and apron, and you'll leave that way. You're not going to put a curb there.
No, I do not believe we are.
So, do y'all have questions about any specific area of that project? That was going to be, a little complicated in there with those two businesses and their vehicles and trucks and deliveries coming and going. So, but they're a major part of our community, so we want to make sure they're accommodated. Okay, all right.
Thank you so
very
much.
Ms. Molly. All right, so we'll move on to environmental consulting technology projects, and we have item 1 and Ms. Susan. Report on progress of Marine Street Triangle parking lot construction and expected completion date.
Okay, I met with Tom McLaughlin down there. One thing that we're waiting on, which I think you all got a copy of, is because there was a lot of organic and mucky material underneath the western side of that property. So it's a question of, and it is spongy because it's really wet. Putting that rock on there, do we put a geogrid down there to help stabilize that area it will add stability to that area and also help kind of prevent future cracking, because they would lay that geogrid. I don't know if you were able to pass that around, but I did have a picture of it. It's just a grid, a really high stencil, like a strength plastic, engineered for to help hold that soil in place above it. They would lay that over the western portion of that property to help give that strength. They would, like I say, would go on the bottom above the soil. They would lay the filter fabric on top, and then the gravel goes on top of that. It'll just help give that strength area, so we wouldn't have settlement in the portions of it. If anything, it would go as one unit and not as separate, because they'll tie it together. Those come in 12-foot by Lowe's. You can buy it by 150-foot lengths, and they'll tie them together so they would be one strong unit across that western portion of the property.
And that goes on top of the
dirt, the organic
gravel goes on top
Right.
of that.
It's very spongy. They did roll it. Now the rain we had did help settle that gravel that's out there. So it does look good. We were riding over it and it's not making the ruts like it did on Friday, but it is still holding a lot of that water of the natural soils. So they did give us a proposal to, if they want to add that geogrid down there, which I believe we were 5,200 for what that was, if we want to add it under those 2/3. It would just help give a little of assurance that we won't have small little cracks in certain portions on that western property, say in a year, if we have a real wet, rainy season, or if we have a real dry season, the soil shrinks also. Short of trying to excavate a lot of that organic soils. And there is a lot of tree debris, which we did know that to start with. When we had the geotech borings, it is deeper, it's 8 foot. They ran into a little bit shallower, and they had some concrete debris also out there. So there is some debris underneath there too, but it will help. So that's, one thing that we want to know moving forward. If we want to add that geogrid over the western portion, but North Florida Asphalt would be ready to pave in about a week and a half. If Duke can come out there and move the poles. They are going to eliminate one of the poles. They don't need to move both. So they are going to remove the most northernmost one on that curve and just keep the southern one. They don't need to have both, from what they said. Their inspector came out and looked at that. So we will eliminate. So if we want, we possibly could add one more parking space. It'd be a short one, maybe for a car. We could add a space in if we want to do that, since we don't have that pole we went to.
Would that be a change work order? Is that going to be a fee?
It would just be changing the striping.
Oh.
Because we had that striped in there for no parking, so we could just have them, actually it might even be, it'd probably be a wash. Instead of doing that angled hashed area, we would just do one parking space.
If that would be a wash on the cost, would y'all rather have an additional cars parking space there? All right, should we motion on that, or can we agree on that in principle?
If there are more than one item, what I'm hearing too is maybe a change order, maybe lump them all together and vote on
Okay, all right, on the
Yeah,
5,200 and these parking spaces.
Right.
All right, but we're not finished yet, so don't make a motion.
But the expected, if a lot will depend on Duke Energy for our timeline, but if they could forward maybe by right there before Labor Day, right after, they could be finished by the middle of September, coming in stripes. So, and we did talk they are getting a water well contractor to abandon that well. He's coming out of Weewa to abandon the well. He was there yesterday, got all the well measurements, so they hope to do that soon too. They still have not found a septic tank out there. They've probed around, so unless maybe they did remove something when they tore down the buildings. So as of right now,
Will that save money, and they don't have to remove the septic tank?
we can ask them to help, because it was in their budget for demo, so we can see it probably won't be much, because it would just been in part of their earthwork.
Yeah. But it's worrisome if there is a septic tank and they don't find it, and decides to.
They should have, for the grading that they've done up in that area, they should have
Crushed it by now.
Yeah, they should have hit the top by now.
But maybe we think that it was something else like 50 gallons.
Correct.
We decided
Right.
on, yeah.
They've been told by local people that possibly they had a 55-gallon drum was used for their septic. So they may have,
Yeah.
they may have since moved
Years ago,
Yeah,
which was accepted.
correct.
That's all they had. So, so about this 5,200, what do you think, Ms. Keisha?
You know how I feel about transportation.
I know.
Sorry.
Um,
I mean, it does look good, you know, especially after that rain, because we did 2 test strips on Friday, one with the grid and one without. You know, but it's a one little section, you know, and that is seeming to hold up. But that's, like I say, that's maybe a 12-foot section by 20 feet long. That's not that whole area, so.
I got a year-to-date on this special revenue fund, July the 10th from Miranda, and I was looking at that this morning, just trying to figure out, you know, where would there be extra money? And we could probably piecemeal it together from several budget lines.
And I'll check too, because we will have a little bit of a reduction. It probably won't be much, but we won't have those 4 bollards around that one pole.
Yeah.
That won't, probably isn't much, but we should have a little bit.
But then we have to pay for the utility pole too that we haven't planned on. You haven't, I guess if you heard from me, we would have said. So I haven't heard from you. All right. Oh, we did, one of the fellows, when we had the pre-construction kickoff meeting phone conference, talked about that a lot of cities have a franchise agreement with the power companies, and any poles that are in the right of way that interfere with construction or infrastructure that the cities are doing, that is paid for by the power company. So we mentioned that in the I wrote a little note to our representative for Duke Energy, and that may be why we haven't heard from them. They may be still researching to see what our franchise contract is, whether or not we may not have to pay for it. That would be.
Yes, that was a couple weeks ago, right? I think that you.
Yeah, it's been at least 2 weeks that I wrote that note. So then only we need an approval for, at this point, 5,200 for the GeoGrid, or maybe not approval, a motion regarding that, and adding the additional parking space, removing the gore lines and adding the additional parking space at that location. So, would anyone like to entertain a motion regarding whether or not to purchase the GeoGrid and to add a parking space? If you wanted to make it as 2 different motions, if you agree with one and not. Okay. And you would like. Okay, so Commissioner Allen makes a motion for the change order to approve the GeoGrid at approximately $5,200 and to change the gore lines where the utility pole is into a parking place. So we have that motion by Commissioner Allen. Is there a second? Okay, and a second by Commissioner Massey. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries. Okay, then we'll just move on to the.
Do we want to? You want me to respond to his comment about that water? About you're talking about the water.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
That is the low spot down there, and the rock is actually doing what it's supposed to be. It's holding that water, and it's just going to that low spot. So they'll deal with that before they finish laying anything out. Right. Yeah, because we were down there, and you can see the water coming out of the rock. So that rock is holding. That's the storage for our parking lot. So it is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. So.
That's a good answer. You had a lot of time to look that up.
Yeah, so that gravel is like the reservoir
Yes, it
of
is.
the water.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
so when that concrete goes on top of it, then water will be staying.
No, it'll go down this pervious concrete, so it'll be going down through that concrete, so the concrete will hold some, but then that rock is
The water will stay in that reservoir.
And
then
it'll
seep.
slowly drain it.
Okay, seep on down to the dirt.
Correct. And then it is designed to hold, if you did have some major hurricane storms, then we do have an approval it'll overflow into the bioretention pond.
Okay. How will it overflow across the street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Is there any more questions? Are there any more questions? Okay.
Your retention pond was full yesterday. You could have fished it.
Right.
That's
That's good though. Because there is we do have an overflow structure in there, so if it does get to a certain height, it'll flow into there and go into our stormwater retrofit.
Is that
So
that
it's-
metal?
Yes.
Okay, and I think it's real pretty when it's full of water.
Yeah.
It looks,
All that
it's
water would have been hanging around the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't any in the street, so.
All right, then we'll move to item number 2, Marine Street Pavilion and Waterfront Fishing Pier Improvement Project. Report on your proposed timeline for your engineering and design work, and discussion possible action if any changes.
We talked a little bit, I think, last week about, or last time, just kind of holding off a little bit, but I sent Courtney an example. I didn't know if you had a chance to pass that around with anybody. I kind of did, to keep some of the costs down that so we can put more money maybe into the rehab. I found one online, and we can put out to bid, and it's kind of like a little checklist. You have items, and we can kind of break it out, and it's just telling that, that the contractor needs to furnish all the labor materials. So I think it's something we can pretty easily put together, and we'll just do A, B, C, the fishing pier and pavilion. We'll break them out into different tasks, because like I say, you don't have to do them all at once. We have 3 years to do all the construction, so if we want to say do the fishing pier and the pavilion first, we can do that. But we'll have costs for everything, so we have to submit cost into the state as part of this pre-construction, our acceptance. So we can put all that together. We'll give them and put it out to bid, advertise it, get quotes. Because otherwise we have to show a lot more documentation if you're just going to go with one contractor. So we're better off to go ahead and advertise it for bid, get quotes from people. But we line item, it'll be easy to pick and choose what you'd like to go forward with first. So, and it's, just breaking it down to even furnishing the nails, making sure they haul off the debris, and inspecting the pilings. That may be the only thing. We may have a little extra. We may have them maybe include some cost if some pilings do need to be replaced, maybe to go ahead and put a little contingency into there. But at least we'll have it in there in case something does come up if one of the pilings looks bad underneath those piers. So we do have, I think we mentioned before, we have the latest is November 28th to submit these costs into the state. So, the sooner we can maybe put that together. I think I did send you a proposal, I think, to Courtney to put that. If not, I can resend it to you if you didn't get it. A proposal to put the costs together, to go ahead and put like an estimate together and do some engineering costs.
I don't know if I've seen that.
Okay, I'll resend it then.
And that's what I was going to ask, a task order.
Right.
We haven't received, I
Right.
haven't seen.
Right, I can go ahead and resend that.
Okay, would that be a task order just for doing this?
Correct. Putting
so you're-
the specs together,
Uh-huh.
and then either we can advertise it, or if you want to go ahead and just put it out there, it doesn't matter, however we want to do that. And then we can put a due date for bids. This one's a little, it should be pretty straightforward since it's just the rehab on there. So we can use, I think we have enough time. We'll get in our timelines to get it done. So as long as we maybe advertise by the middle of next month, we should be fine.
And when is you said November the what?
About November 28th
Okay.
is when we have to have everything due.
And then this is a reimbursement style grant, is that correct?
Yes, just like we did for the stormwater retrofit.
So we probably don't need to start spending too much money until October 1.
No, not on this project we won't spend because we have to put the specs together and submit the cost. Probably won't submit the cost till.
Like we said, we have to have them submitted by the end of November. They have to be into there.
Yeah, we probably won't. Well, now, what about
As far as advertising and
the task
and
order?
the task order, and none of that needs to be spent until October 1.
Okay. So you'll be very short on time if you advertise to bid, but maybe I can work with Courtney and maybe some of it you might be able to do, not to put more on your plate. Because otherwise, if you want to do a couple, 30-day bid notice, it just might be short in getting.
But I think we have it in the budget for, did I bring this year's budget?
We haven't changed anything, have we?
It's
Not this last year's.
right. It's in this year's budget.
At least to get it advertised, if we can, at least, and then,
We got advertising.
okay, okay.
Okay, do y'all have any questions about this pavilion and waterfront fishing pier, Coast Guard job? Y'all have any questions to Ms. Susan?
If you want, I can send that, if you've got that one still, that example, if you want to send it, if they did want to see it.
I have an example I can send out.
Okay. Just to kind of what I was thinking, to keep it straightforward, easy.
And if y'all don't mind, I wanted to go back to item 1 briefly, if y'all don't mind, on the parking lot and mention that I had forgotten, and I got it confirmed with you when you were here last week, that this parking lot includes 2 handicap spaces right directly in front of the pavilion.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep, they're going to put this in.
We were tending to forget it because we're concentrating on the parking lot, but that was something that was required with our CDBG grant, that we needed parking spaces there, so we
Right.
added that on into
Right.
this project, so.
Right, we've got one that we're putting on in the trailer parking area, and then we're putting the 2 in front of the
Right, and directly in front of it, where it will be right, one on each side of that little sidewalk there.
No, they're both going on in between like the 2 little islands. That way we
Okay.
can instead of, because there was already 3 spaces there, so we're just taking those 3 spaces and making them into 2.
Okay.
So it'll be without having to lose any more parking over there.
So if y'all see something going on, you'll know what's happening. All right then, I guess that's it, unless y'all have other questions. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Susan. And then we'll just move on to our CRA board projects. Item 1 is just to review our 2017-2018 budget workshop recommendations and discussion and action to be taken if there are any budget items and budget recommendation to the City Commission. So you all know we had our budget workshop in July. And are there any recommendations from the clerk, or does the budget still stand as we worked on it?
That's the same as I passed out at the next meeting.
Okay. With the payment of the $339 in there. Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding the budget? And, no? Are y'all with us today? Okay. All right, then, we need to, Ms. Keisha, we need to approve this budget then so that it can go on for final approval to the commission. Is that correct? No, we haven't voted on it.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as we recommended from our workshop.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the 2017-2018 CRA budget from Mr. Rob Powis, and we have a second by Commissioner Massey. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries. Okay, this last item. Does any other items brought forward by our CRA board members? Do we have any other items that you all would like to bring forward and discuss? Okay then. All right, then I guess it's in order to have a motion to adjourn, if you all would like to adjourn. If not, we'll hang out a little longer. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Massey, a second by Mr. Rob Powers. Any more discussion on that? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then that motion carries. Thank you very much.